TorahCafe.com.
On the opening page of his biography, Steve Jobs is quoted as saying, "Those who are foolish enough to believe that they can change the world are the ones who do." The technological daring and innovation of Apple in many ways has changed the world and the way that we live. What we can do today with one little wireless device was unthinkable not 100 years ago, but just 25 years ago. It's a camera. It's a phone. It's a music player. And with one little knap on a button, you can trade stocks, you can book travel, you can do just about anything. The Rebbe's inaugural address on the 10th of Shvat, 1951, is not cited as the source for Jobs' quote, but it may very well have been. For on that night in January of 1951, the Rebbe too spoke of foolishness, shtus de gedusha, holy foolishness, at which time he set forth a vision far broader, far deeper, and far more compelling for the interests of mankind than that envisioned by the great pioneers of technology of our time. To be sure, it was in fact the vision for a technological revolution. You see, technology, the term technology, has become synonymous with electronics and gadgets. But if you look up the dictionary and seek out for the definition of the term technology, what you will find, at least in the Merriam-Webster edition, is, quote, a capability given by the practical application of knowledge. Technology is the practical application of knowledge. And if that is the definition of technology, then the application of Torah knowledge in daily life is technology in its purest form. And so on that fateful night in 1951, the Rebbe envisioned and engineered a technological revolution in which every Jew would have access to Jewish knowledge and the capability of practical application. How does one bridge the vast expanse between vision and execution? They tell a story of a lone desert highway in the Negev in Israel. It was a late night and there was one lone speeding car. A policeman saw a car speed by, chased it down, stopped the car. The driver wound his window down, and the policeman quickly realized that the driver was none other than the General Moshe Dayan. And the policeman said, with all due respect, General, your speed far exceeds the speed limit of this highway. And General Dayan said to the policeman, young man, as you know and as you can see, I have but one eye. Would you rather I have it on the speedometer or on the road? Those of us who are blessed with two eyes fall along the lines of two types of visionaries. There are people who are macro visionaries, and micro visionaries. A great leader is both. A great leader knows that the pathway to the big picture is through the small picture. Today, Rosh Chodesh Kislev, my parents, may they live and be well, are celebrating their 62nd wedding anniversary. After their engagement was announced and their wedding was to take place in Melbourne, Australia, from where I hail, the Rebbe wrote a letter to my grandfather, Rabbi Kluvgant, my maternal grandfather, and said the following. He began the letter in a very unusual manner. He wrote that I've been contemplating whether to write to you about this matter or not, but I have come to the conclusion that I have no choice. And that is with regards to the forthcoming marriage of your daughter. It will be the first wedding of a Chabad couple, a new generation of Chabad couples in Australia. And thus, it will be foundational, and it will set the tone for all of the future couples to be wed in Australia. And so the Rebbe asks my grandfather to ask my mother if she would be willing to not only wear a head covering, a tichel, which she would have done, but a sheitel, a wig, which the Rebbe felt very strongly was a more modest, completely modest head covering. And the Rebbe wrote these words, with the donning of her sheitel, of this wig, Bozeh Tolei, in this is contingent the future success of Chabad in Australia. I don't know how many of you have been down under, but Melbourne and Australia in general is truly one of Chabad's greatest success stories. And every time I go back and visit and I see another building, I know how this macro picture all goes back to this one woman and her one head covering. You know, I shared this story at my table one Friday night, and sitting at the table was a girl in the Chabad High School in Coral Springs. And after I shared the story, she said, having heard the story that you shared about your mother, would you mind if I shared you a story about mine? And I said, please, go ahead. She comes from Daytona Beach, Florida, which is about 3 hours north, not known to be a particularly Jewish town. Her parents had started to become more involved with Chabad, and the shliach there, Rabbi Pinchas Zagwi. And her mother, she said, had gotten to a point where she was strongly considering covering her hair. But it was a very, very difficult decision for her to make. She ordered a beautiful sheitel, and she finally mustered up enough strength to put it on as she left for work one morning. On that very first morning that she came to her place of employment, which is an assisted living facility, the owner, who actually lives in Chicago but was visiting that day, immediately identified her, went straight up to her and said, "There's a Jewish community in Daytona?" And so her heart sank. See, the rabbi convinced me that it was a human hair shtetl, nobody would know, and in an instant my boss has now identified me as a Jew. She said, yes, there is a Chabad community. And he immediately asked for the address of the Chabad house. And he made his way over to the Chabad house, which at that time was a small little storefront on Granada Avenue, walked straight into the office of Rabbi Zagwi, and said to him, "You have a school?" He said, "No." He said, "Why not?" I said, "I don't have the funds to start a school." Then he asks him, by the way, the story was corroborated. I heard it from Rabbi Zagwi as well. "You have a board?" Here he started getting into a dilemma. Of course, the board in most Chabad houses consists of the rabbi and his wife, maybe his children. We didn't want to sound like, a complete loser, a batlin. On the other, to say that he didn't have a board. On the other hand, to be dishonest is, he said, well, sheepishly, he said, to tell you the truth, no, I don't have a board. The guy said, good, boards are a waste of time. They have meetings and they just resolve to have another meeting. He said, would $2 million be enough for you to start a school? I think we could probably get by with $2 million. $5 million later, Chabad in Ormond Beach has a beautiful, thriving Chabad house and community, which I've personally seen, all because of that one woman and her decision to cover her hair on that day. See, in many ways, it is the grassroots effectiveness of lay leaders who don't even necessarily see themselves as leaders that transform communities. And the power of that type of leadership, which is leadership by example, is more powerful than anything else. If I could take another page out of Job's biography, he also said that he didn't believe in focus groups and market research because people don't know what they want until you show it to them. While there have been, over the years, instances wherein communities have turned to Chabad to provide them with a rabbi and create a Chabad presence in their city, in the overwhelming number of cases, the Rebbe did not wait to be asked to dispatch a shliach to a particular city. He took the initiative and sent a shluchim, typically a young couple with maybe a child or two in tow. The Rebbe created a new genre of rabbi. Rabbis who were not congregational rabbis, hired by congregations, but they were to become spiritual entrepreneurs, charged with a mission of building an organization from the bottom up. Chabad rabbis are the startups of the Jewish nation. The Rebbe knew that if Chabad went the route of focus groups, market research, and feasibility studies, generations of Jews would be lost in the process to assimilation. But more than that, he knew that there was a captive market in the soul of every Jew if they could only be shown genuine love and acceptance. He knew that there are lay leaders all over the world, just like you, lay leaders who were laying low, waiting to be touched, waiting to be embraced, waiting to be inspired. You know, much of Chabad ideology, and particularly that which fuels the global juggernaut of Chabad Lubavitch worldwide, is the principle of resonance. That if your message is real, but more importantly, if you are real, then the people that you touch will connect, and what you feel will resonate with them. Chabad is not agenda-driven. Chabad is people-driven. Agendas are imposed. People are cultivated. Relationships. I would venture to say that all of you who are here today are here because a Chabad rabbi has cultivated a relationship with you, not because he has imposed his worldview upon you. I was traveling once in Southern California on my way to speak at a Chabad house, and I stopped off at a Starbucks, and I was about to get my coffee when a few feet away from me, a matronly-looking African-American woman put her hand on her hip, looked at me and said, I see a preacher. I said, no, ma'am, I ain't a preacher. I'm just a teacher. We don't preach. We teach. And if I were to ask you to remember one childhood teacher who made an impact on you. It wouldn't be the one who necessarily dispensed the most information. It would be the one who took the greatest personal interest in you. The belief of resonance is so deep that if you reach out with genuine love, it'll resonate. Even when it appears to be wrong, it's right. About 12 years ago, there was a hurricane that was set to hit South Florida on Yom Kippur. And sure enough, Yom Kippur in the afternoon, every single synagogue in the entire city of Boca Raton was closed down with the exception of the 3 Chabad houses. Staying in my home was a young woman whose husband was helping me with the services. And as the wind started to churn, she was getting concerned. And so she started to knock on neighbors' doors to find out an update on the weather. And many had evacuated. She finally, around the corner from me, knocked on the door. This old man opens the door. And she starts to say, "Forgive me for disturbing you, but today is..." And before she has a chance to finish the sentence, he says, "Yom Kippur. You don't have to tell me what today is. But you wouldn't catch me in that shul." Furthermore, he launches into a tirade. "I know exactly which house you've come from, that rabbi down the road with all those kids. You dare not tell him that you discovered another Jew." Well, you know, there's no better ammo for a Chabad rabbi than to be told that. So that Yom Kippur at night, we strategized how we're going to reach out to this guy. We realized that if I show up at his door, there's a good chance he won't open it up. So we sent the heavy artillery, my wife and kids. She knocks on the door. He immediately launches into a tirade. She says, "I didn't come here to invite you to the shul. I invited you to come and join us for a meal." After a lot of cajoling, and his wife coming out and insisting that he would be there at whatever time my wife suggested, he finally came. And the evening that he came was Shmini Atzeres, the last night that we sit in the sukkah. And I was treading very carefully with him, didn't exactly know what to do. I decided, we'll just let the evening flow. And so the meal started, and we started to sing, and we started to say L'chaim, and he was quiet. He was saying L'chaim. And then it was about the soup. When he first opened his mouth, he turns to me, and in a loud voice, in the presence of about 30 people in the sukkah, he says to me, "I hate you." And about every spoon dropped. He said, "I hate you because you are forcing me to remember everything that I've tried to forget for the last 50 years. Stunned silence. And then he turns to me and says, "But I love you because I haven't heard a Chassidish niggin in 50 years. Sometimes we try to reach out to people, and maybe they don't say, "I hate you," in as many words, but their body language expresses it nonetheless. The Rebbe taught us, know that deep down inside, his soul is crying and saying, "I love you. Reach me. Teach me. Connect to me." So let me conclude, because I see Rabbi Eliezer has risen, and I know that that's what I do to speakers. But now he's sat down, so that's got me confused. I just want to share with you something that the Rebbe shared in September of 1991 to the Machane Yisrael Development Fund, a group of lay leaders. This is the Rebbe's message. The Rebbe expounded beautifully on the age-old partnership of Yisachar and Zvulun. Yisachar, the tribe of scholars, and Zvulun, the tribe of commerce, of business people. And the Rebbe said that though the two tribes played two distinct roles, each one must in fact incorporate the role of the other. And this is what the Rebbe said. To be a successful businessman, you have to embody the smach, zvulun b'tzeisacha. Smach means be happy. You have to be enthusiastic. You have to be excited. And b'tzeisacha, you have to go out there and you got to make it happen. You can't sit back and wait for business to come your way. But the Rebbe also said that a zvulun has to be yisachar. A layperson has to also set aside time to study Torah. And the benefit of that is not only that you will be more deeply connected to Judaism, You'll be a better business person. Your mind will be sharper. You'll be smarter in your decision-making in business. And you will have a greater appreciation for the causes that you support. You will become a maven. And when I was reading that, I thought to myself, perhaps that can connect to the theory that's posited in a very popular book published recently called The Tipping Point, in which the author tries to deconstruct what it is that makes trends happen, what moves products. And he posits there are three people that make things happen in this world, that make trends happen: connectors, mavens, and salespeople. Connectors are the people who excel in bitzei sechel. They go out there in the world and make connections. They're out there meeting people. Smach, in order to be a salesperson, you have to be enthusiastic about what you're selling. You have to be besimcha. You have to be joyous. But you also have to be yisocher. You have to be a maven. You have to understand not only your product, you also have to understand the greater meaning to everything that you do in your life. And so, my friends, let me conclude by saying this. Chabad has long passed the tipping point. Chabad is the new mainstream of the Jewish world. And that is in no small measure thanks to you, the lay leaders, the movers, the connectors, the mavens, who have used your resources not only to develop yourselves professionally and in the business world, but to make a difference in the Jewish community in which you live. In a few short minutes from now, we will leave to the banquet, the international banquet of this conference, the single greatest assemblage of representation of the Jewish world will be in that room tonight. And we will do what Jews do best. First of all, we'll eat. A lot. And we're going to hear inspiring words. But above all, we're going to dance. And when we dance, the world will dance with us. And I ask each and every one of you to take the rhythm of that dance back with you to your communities and enjoin people in your community to join with you in the dance of Jewish life. And may God bless us and all of Israel, that no longer in the streets of Jerusalem shall we see the spilling of innocent Jewish blood, but we should see in the streets of Jerusalem the sounds of joy, the rhythmic dance of Mashiach's arrival. May it be speedily in our days. Amen. Thank you.